Join us to get exclusive and rare access to some of the industry's best leaders. Leaders who will share all their secrets to success with you. Leaders who have closed thousands of successful deals between them, generating hundreds of billions of dollars. Leaders giving you the roadmap to fast track your career and reach the highest echelons of the business. So welcome to Series 2 of the Investment Banking Leaders Podcast, and best of luck on your growth journey. Hi, I'm Pete Nieberg, the host of the Investment Banking Leaders Podcast and the Global Head at Outram. And before this episode starts, I have a small favour to ask of you. We had just over 20% of listeners subscribe, and our goal in Series 2 is to increase that to 40%. So if you've ever liked any of our episodes or our content, please hit subscribe. It helps the channel more than you can ever know, and the bigger this channel gets, the higher profile leaders that we can collaborate with to help you on your journey. So thanks for your support in this area. We also appreciate how busy you are, and we've added timestamps to all of our video content in Series 2, making it really easy for you to access the topics of most interest. So I hope that helps, and enjoy the episode. We have a great guest for you all today. I'm super excited to be joined by Justine Mannering, MD in the consumer retail team covering apparel, accessories and the luxury sector at Stifel in New York. Justine started her career as an associate at DC Advisory, rising through the ranks rapidly to director level in under 8 years. She then spent time at BDA Partners and Atlanta before joining Stifel as an MD back in 2018. Across her 20-year investment banking career, Justine has built robust expertise, closed over 100 transactions across numerous consumer segments. And in her current capacity, Justine is also a committee member of WIN, which is Stifel's internal women's organisation, and the diversity ambassador for the investment bank on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. So lots of knowledge I'm sure we'll touch on today. Most recently, last year, Justine was recognised by the Global M&A Network and won an award for women's leaders and top deal makers. Obviously a testament to her skill, expertise and leadership. And if that wasn't enough, Justine is a founding member of Exponent Women, which has a mission of raising women deal makers to a new power, and does so through providing access to an existing ecosystem that delivers meaningful interactions and actionable content. So I'm super psyched to hear Justine's many insights that are going to help you all grow and develop. So welcome, Justine, and thanks for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Let's start off just with you introducing Stifel and what you do for your clients to the listeners.
Absolutely. Stifel is what we define as a middle market investment bank. We're a full service bank, so we offer the full range of products, anything from raising venture capital debt, raising debt for a business, raising equity growth capital, through to mergers and acquisitions, restructuring, and all the way through as the companies grow to IPOs. So we can really help a company from a fairly early growth stage all the way through to being large enough to be on the public markets, which is an exciting part of the market to be in. We get to deal with a lot of founder-owned businesses, private equity-backed businesses, and just really being a part of the company's growth as they work through their life cycle.
Awesome. Thanks, Justine. Nice introduction. I'm sure those who listen to Series 1 are a bit familiar with Peter Shin as well over in the UK. Worked at Stifel too. But how did you end up in investment banking? I think that's always an interesting question early on.
You know, to be honest, it was a mistake. If I'm honest, and people have heard me say this over the years, I was in accounting, I was in public auditing, and really focused on FIG. I ended up auditing private equity firms during the down season and got really interested in that whole world around how you could invest in these companies and really take them to the next level. At the time, I was in London, and really the only way to get into private equity was to spend a little bit of time at an investment bank. And I'll be the first person to tell you, I had no idea what investment banking was when I first started, and it probably took me a year to figure it out. But I was very lucky in that some of my private equity clients kind of helped me to connect with some of the investment banks, really figure out where I wanted to be. And then I was lucky to join a firm called Close Brothers at the time. It's now called DC Advisory, which was very focused on the private equity kind of ecosystem and working with these kind of small and medium-sized companies.
Excellent. And do you feel the foundations through audit brought something different to the investment banking, being a not a traditional route?
I think my current team would say yes, because I still can't help myself when it comes to balancing a cash flow or a balance sheet. No, I think it was a great foundation. It taught me not only about financial statements, but also about companies. I got to audit some big insurance companies. I got to audit glass bottling manufacturers, steel manufacturers, horse ranchers. I really got a great grounding in how businesses worked and how financials worked. And that's been incredibly helpful throughout my career. But I think actually the piece that I think was probably even more helpful was being trained to deal with senior management and the professional skills that the large accounting firms are really good at training people in. So I think that all of those factors have really helped with banking. People always laugh. They're like, you're only going to do banking for 2 years and you're still there. It was a little bit like I was only going to do audits for 2 years and I was there for 4. But I think it was the perfect grounding for me, certainly, to get into the career and the progression of where I am now.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. And before we jump into, I guess, the meat of today's discussion, tell the listeners one thing that they can't find anywhere about you, something unknown or unexpected.
Oh, God.
Put you on the spot.
I wasn't ready for that one. Do you know what? I think what people always think is kind of funny about me is I spend all my time in investment banking, but really when people say, what do you do with your spare time? What do you love doing more than anything? It's really being at home, being with friends, and I love to cook. I have always done. Just love that ability to share food with people and to entertain. And I grew up in a family where food was very important and a part of every occasion. So probably
Nice.
not on my profile anywhere, but certainly keeps me busy.
Have you got a signature dish?
No, interestingly, it's all about trying new things. It's a story of my career, story of my life. Always looking for the next new thing.
Nice. Excellent. All right. Well, thanks for sharing, and certainly a good skill to have. In terms of the challenges, let's talk a bit about today. We've got a lot of bankers listening, of course, across all the different roles. So what do you see as the main challenges facing bankers in their roles today?
I think today the banking environment is changing so quickly. And so trying to keep up with technology, trying to keep up with kind of just regulations, trying to keep up with changes in the environment globally, global impact of political events, just means that everything moves a little bit faster and you've got to be very aware of the environment and how your sector is being impacted by it. I think when I first started, I felt just that being able to access information, being able to access people took that much longer. And maybe it was more long-term relationship driven. I think today we have just a lot more access to everything. And so it's really figuring out how you can leverage the volume of information and the volume of contacts and emails and just noise to get to the people you need to get to understand what's impacting your sector and really focus on what works for your role and how you get ahead within your role. So I think it's just really being very clear on how you do that. But at the same time, you do have to find a way to keep up with what's happening around you. A lot of bankers are very threatened by the technology and what that means for both how deals work and environments. And I think that actually when you spend some time and you figure out how it works for you, that's probably the most important thing. I will say at a junior level, I think banking has become even more competitive than it was before. And so being able to leverage some of the tools that are available to you and some of the skill sets that certainly the next generation of bankers have that the rest of us are struggling with around technology and around being able to interact in that way is definitely a benefit that they should be leveraging.
That's interesting, and we've gone straight to technology.
Yeah.
So maybe let's sit there a little bit. I know that you're interested in AI and you're a promoter of it and utilizing the technology. So can you share some of the opportunities that you see for bankers, I guess, and how they can use AI to be more efficient?
Yeah, and I think the way I approach banking, I mean, I certainly, as you get to managing director level, your key strength is your relationships and your tech, obviously your knowledge of the product and your knowledge of the service, but your relationships and your understanding of the sector. And I'm a big believer that you can use AI in your daily life just to make yourself more productive and more relevant. And so whether that's market research, trying to use some of these tools to gather information on what's happening in a market or some of the trends or what people are saying, how people are perceiving a company, you can do that in the space of 5 minutes today, whereas it may have taken you a week before you would have had to buy a report or that kind of thing. And then I also think Stifel is making a big investment in how to leverage technologies within our processes and systems. And so I think things like being able to automatically generate company profiles, valuation analysis, that kind of thing, being able to link all of that just makes us more productive as a banker. So we can spend more time thinking about what it means for the companies, what it means for the founders, what it means for our clients, versus just trying to find the information. So I do think there's benefits to it. I think you have to be careful. 16-year-old was telling me about all the things that could go wrong and what a hallucination was in AI, but at the same time, I think you have to realize its limitations. But there is just a huge opportunity to kind of lean into that space and really make yourself a more productive banker.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I think that market research piece and gathering information, it's never been easier and more efficient when it's used right. So I'm sure more and more of our listeners will get to grips with it and appreciate what it can bring. Obviously, MD, you've been in the role a while. You've done great things in the role at Stifel particularly. So talk to me about how you become a successful MD. If I'm an analyst or associate listening today and I've got desires to, build my career to that level, how do they become successful?
Yeah, and this is a long question, which I could go on forever. But I think when you start in banking, certainly as an analyst level or an associate level, you're very focused on doing everything correct technically. And by the way, being smart and working hard and doing a good job, that's like table stakes in banking, because honestly, everyone around me is probably smarter than me. You always feel like that. There's always something to learn from people. So I've always said in your early stage of your career, the most important thing is to get your groundwork, get your foundation. Make sure you get those deals that are harder and more complicated. Make sure you do an equity deal, do an M&A deal, do a debt deal. Just really figure out what you need to know technically, and then make sure those skills are just something you're good at. What really starts to get you ahead in your career is your ability to connect with people and teams, because at the end of the day, our role is to work with companies and investors and connect them, whether it's debt or equity or restructure, whatever we're working on. It's about selling our firms, selling ourselves, selling our clients, working with people, making sure you're getting the best out of people. And so as you progress through your career, you've got to have that technical base. And obviously there's not a day that goes by that I don't learn something new technically, or about a sector or about a product. And I hope that never changes, because that's one of the funnest things about the job. But actually what gets you ahead is your ability to work well in a team, work well with your VP, as a VP, work well with your managing director, learning how to take a deal from start to finish. And that's not just producing documents and writing reports and kind of doing models. That's making sure that the client is feeling good, that they're giving you the information you need, that you're helping them through what they need to do, you're helping them to present. All of those kind of soft skills become more and more and more important. And I think when I first made managing director, it was a little bit of a shock to me when someone was like, okay, so up until now you've been running deals, and now you need to go out and create a client base and find people who are going to trust you and go and basically make money for the firm. And that's a big step. And it's all those soft skills that you can actually learn as a junior banker internally. And then as soon as you get the opportunity to start going to networking events, meeting clients, meeting contemporaries at other firms, I encourage that really, really strongly. So I think, again, it's knowing your sector, working hard, that's just part of it. But really, it's connecting with people. That's what makes a successful managing director.
Yeah, excellent, loud and clear. And that makes sense. Connect with the people, connect with team, take the opportunities as networking comes up, which we know is key to long-term success in the industry. Any internal tips? I know you've built teams and we'll come on to that in a minute. But again, if I'm working hard, I've got lots of work, what do you recommend I do to help build those meaningful connections, both internally and externally?
I think honestly, just a little bit of an aside, my first 2 years in investment banking, I think I maybe said 3 words the entire year to the managing director and the VP. And actually, to the CEO at the time, I was working on a deal with him, and to his credit, I will always tell the story and always be thankful for it. He came up to me at the end of the year and he's like, Justine, you're obviously smart, you work hard, we appreciate it. But we'd love to hear what you think, because I bet you know more than we know that you know. And from then on, every time I was in a meeting, he would ask a question, I'd have to speak up, and it got easier and easier. So what I say to people today is, I was like, and I think the generation is different now. I think people are more confident in their approach. I was like, don't be scared to ask why or what's happening. I mean, I think we struggle. I'm not talking about pushing back on work. I'm asking, just ask why you're doing it or what the relevant. Not that you don't want to do it, it's just so you understand what you're doing. Don't be scared to ask, because or ask for feedback when you've done something. None of us mind. We were all in that position. We all want to help. We want to be supportive. But I think that's really key. And when I look at teams and I look at the analysts who really progress the fastest, it's the people who first of all take on the jobs, right? Like if there's something comes up and it's not the funnest and maybe it's harder or maybe it's more repetitive or whatever it is, but it gives you the opportunity to work with a senior MD or with a VP, take that opportunity, not because the work is going to get you ahead, but because you get the opportunity to interact and you get the opportunity to really ask those questions and figure out why you're doing what you're doing. And just that's a great way to make a connection. Don't be scared to ask the questions. Don't be scared to speak up. I always say maybe don't speak up in your first meeting with the clients unless you really know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But being confident
Caveat.
internally to ask the questions. So just start to build connections with people is important. The other thing I'd say is pretty early on who you get on with and who you work best with. And that idea of finding people internally who will sponsor you through your, whether it's an analyst program or an associate program or your career all the way through, it is really, really key. So I've had a few people, and I've been super lucky in my career where someone's just really kind of take me under their wing, made sure that I was on track, getting the deals I wanted to get, doing what I needed to do to get ahead when I didn't know what that was. I didn't come from a banking family. I didn't know what that looked like. And so again, finding those people who can be your sponsor, who can be your kind of cheerleader, who you can talk to earlier is helpful as well.
Super. I heard taking on the tougher work, giving yourself access to collaborate with higher ups, speak up, ask questions, be curious. It seems to be key for you. Good recommendations to help build the connections within the team. I know we've talked a lot about mentorship on series 1 of the podcast, and your take is very much mentorship is someone that gives you a bit of advice, but really sponsorship's key. And you've already started to cover that. So what does having a sponsor really mean? I know you talked about pushing you forward. Give the listeners an idea of what having a sponsor really means.
I think, and by the way, I think mentors are really important too. And I still mentor a number of people that I've worked with. I have a number of really great mentors that I make a point of staying in touch with and keeping in touch with, because I think it is important to have that sounding board. And whether it's internal or external, I've actually found external almost more helpful. People I can talk to without any issue, who understand the industry and can give good advice is great. I think it's different from a sponsor. A sponsor is someone who's going to back you internally, and investment banking is political. It's not just the person who builds the best model. It's not just the person who puts in the hardest, the longest hours. It's part of how do people feel about you and how you're going to represent the organization and how you're going to, whether it's someone a couple of years ahead of you when it comes to reviews or when it comes to promotions or when it comes to putting people on committees, having somebody there who wants you to succeed and is kind of vested in your success is very helpful. Now, that's not always going to be the case, and it hasn't been the case at every bank I've been at. But if you can find someone who wants you to succeed and helps you and you can work with them, that's a great way to recharge where you're getting to. And honestly, the way to build that relationship is to show somebody that you deserve that. And that's part of building the relationship, doing the work, all those things we talked about to really get to that point.
And relationship building, you've given us the recipe there. Again, curious, work for the higher ups, look out, put yourself out there. But do you have any tactics or tools that you use? So as an example, we know LinkedIn's big these days for relationship building, etc. Do you have any tactics, tips that you use?
I think you have to be fairly committed to it. But yes, LinkedIn, figuring out who you know in common. I'm a big believer in, if you're meeting someone, do your homework. Don't just show up and expect that all to work. Figure out what they've done, figure out where they come from. Maybe there's something in a LinkedIn profile or a news report on something they're interested in outside of work. All of that stuff, do the work before. But then when you're there, it's just a huge believer in connecting with people. So there's lots of tips that you learn through your career and how to connect with someone really quickly, how to engage with people in a friendly way. Again, none of this comes easily. It's not first nature to anyone when you walk into a cocktail party and you have to smile and talk to people. But I do think it's helpful if you know who you want to meet, some background around them, and ideally get a warm introduction. If you can't do that, sure, you can cold call, you can kind of stalk, find people at a conference. You're not going to connect with everyone, you're not going to make a relationship with everyone. But I do think there's a lot, again, comes back to a bit of technology and connectivity around people, and then figure out how you can help them. It's all very well that you need to meet someone to help yourself, but really figure out what it is that you're offering them, because everyone's a little bit selfish. If I'm going to spend time with you, why? Why are you different from the other banker down the road? Why do I want to spend time with you? It's not just because you're a nice person or you have a title. That's an important part of it. I'm going to ask you for something. What can I offer you in return?
I love that sentiment. And again, I think you're spot on. If you can't offer value to someone,
What
everyone's
are
busy,
you doing?
time's a limited resource. So finding people you have in common, helping the connection there, doing your research, again, stuff that really connects with me. So thanks for sharing that. I think that'll be helpful for the listeners. Just to go back a bit more on the career side. So
Yeah.
I know throughout your career, you've had a lot of success building teams and building sectors out, which is not always the standard route for investment banking. So whether it was building out, I believe, this financial sponsors coverage team that you did over at DC Advisory, the first global consumer team you built when you were at BDA. I'd love to hear your insights in this area. How did you find opportunities to build out new sectors and new teams?
Yeah, I think it's funny. It started for me at DC when I was about 6 years in, and I guess trying to figure out where I wanted to be in the bank. And I was offered an opportunity to go on what we called a secondment. So spend a year in the US working with a partner, learning new things. And that was really the first time that I'd taken that initiative and done something different and really loved it. There was no like groundwork. There was a roadmap as to what to do. It was like, okay, we're going to figure this out. We're going to figure out the best use of your time. You want to do some deals. You're going to do this business development role. And I absolutely loved that. I loved the idea that I could come up with something. I had people to work with. And so when I went back to the UK after all of that, and again, this is a bit of like take those opportunities when they present themselves. It was 2008. It was a tough market. A lot of bankers were just kind of putting their heads down, doing their work, which is the right advice. I got kind of an opportunity to join a new team, which was the sponsor coverage team with a managing director. I was still a director at the time. And we had a ton of fun doing that. It was just a blank sheet of paper. What are we going to do? How are we going to do this? Let's go out and get it done. And having those opportunities early in my career certainly set me up for recognizing how much I love doing that, building something new, starting something new and really building it. And so again, yes, when I joined BDA, same thing. One of the co-founders of the firm was a great sponsor. I would want to sponsor. He was a great supporter of mine, still is, great mentor. And we came up with this idea. I joined for a different role that didn't, for various reasons, we couldn't go forward with. And said, let's do this. Let's put in the effort. Let's do the work. Let's come up with a plan. Let's come up with some targets. And it really is, it's a little scary. It's always a little scary when you have to do something new like that. But it is so much fun to see that. And honestly, the key thing with all of this is you can't do it by yourself. You have to bring people with you. And so again, all of those skills around connecting with people, telling people what I was doing, getting people excited. I spent quite a lot of time when I was building a consumer team globally, overseas, just getting to know people, like taking off for lunch, get to know how old are their kids, what are they doing, what do they want to do with their careers, how can their goals align with what we're trying to do. And so just really spending the time to get to know the people and then bringing them with you. You can pull people along. Never as successful, never as much fun. And so that's been good. And honestly, I'd say to anybody thinking about a long-term career in banking, is that is one of the things with banking is you're constantly building your own business. So yes, it's a big bank. Yes, it's a team. Yes, you have a role, but really it's your book of business. It's your relationships. It's your clients. It's your team. And so you have to like that. You have to like the idea. And I still think about it that way. Like I'm building my own business, even within a bigger bank. So it may not be a new team right now or a new sector, but it's still always that building. And that's a lot of fun. And bringing people along for the ride is just as much fun.
Yeah, I love that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, I guess. So I really understand again that those people, those relationships you have, the sponsorship and being willing to step out, try new things.
Try things, absolutely.
And any other particular skills that you feel it takes to start these new sectors rather than being open to risk and willing to jump in? If I'm a banker wanting to do that, what am I looking to build out?
I don't know, maybe it's just not really thinking it all through. No, I think it's just being willing to try new things. You never know where it's going to land. Opportunities move past you if you don't take them. I'm a big believer in that. Funny, one of our family sayings is when you're faced with something, figure out what you want to do and then do it. Like, don't overthink it. So if it's something you're interested in, if it's something you're excited about, and you think there's a real opportunity, try it out. It may work, it may not, and you've got to be open to fail. And I think that's a big skill that you learn through this career. Not everything works out, and things are hard, and you've got to work hard, and you've got to stick with it. But definitely take those opportunities when you can.
Huge mindset
Yeah.
piece there, isn't it? About
Yeah.
being willing to step out and seeing it as a growth versus a failure. So again, that resonates a lot with me. As I mentioned at the top in the introduction, you're heavily involved in the diversity committee. So as a diversity committee member, what does this work mean?
Really, it's almost an advisory committee within our firm. So Stifel has the focus on making sure that our bank is reflective of our clients and the people that work at the bank feel included and accepted and able to perform at their highest level. And so for us within the investment bank, it's really helping to think through what are the best ways to recruit to make sure we get the best possible talent, not just a single pool of talent from a small group of colleges. And if we're recruiting people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different genders, whatever it is that we're looking at, really what we're looking for is the best talent. And then when people come in, making sure that they have the tools to be successful. And for somebody who comes from a professional family, it's maybe a little easier than someone who's, for example, a first-time college graduate with very limited kind of resources. And so just making sure that they have the training, they have the support, they have the kind of structures around them that will let them be, this is a terrible kind of cliche, but the best version of themselves while they're here is really important. So we spend a lot of time thinking about that. It's not just numbers, it's not just bringing in whatever a quota of people or a quota of a category. It's really making sure that we get the best people, and when they're here, they feel like they're part of the community, they're included, and they really have the ability to succeed.
Excellent. No, appreciate that. And that definitely gives me good insight. And I'm a huge believer that it's a team. You can have the committee that does the great work. So for those listening, what can they do in their roles to support better diversity within the bank? What's your take on that?
Yeah, and I think it's two things, and it depends which side of it you're on. If you're kind of the more traditional kind of hire or background, I think just picking your head up and looking around and figuring out that it's not as easy for everyone. It's not as easy for everyone to connect around the type of sports you play, the kind of country clubs you went to, the kind of schools you went to. Maybe just pick your head up and figure out that people are different and make an effort to get to know them and to make them feel included and welcome, because it's very easy for, and I was responsible for this when I just joined banking. I think it was the only, we had two women on the floor below managing director level and one managing director. And we all tried to kind of morph ourselves to the environment we were in, and you shouldn't have to do that. So if you're in a team, pick your head up, figure out who's there, get to know them, get to know their background, figure out their strengths. And then the other thing I would say is if you're coming from a more diverse background, similar to what I was, and if I went back, I might do some things differently. You have strengths that you have to recognize and bring them with you. But at the same time, you have to realize that the people around you may not understand what they are or how to be inclusive. So help them figure it out. They need to know what you need to be successful, and so you do have to find a way to connect with them as well.
Yeah, love that. Great feedback. And again, I think it's key. It goes back to the people part that you were saying, getting to know your team and involving people, making them feel part of the process. So yeah, simple things, isn't it? It seems like it in terms of when you talk about it. So hopefully, hopefully the listeners will take something away from that. Obviously, you're an inspirational female leader. I know you believe there are ways. I know that you believe there are ways women can step up and make a difference. So I'm keen to get your take on what these are.
Yeah, and I have a few views of it. There's a book out somewhere, and I'm going to get the title wrong, but it's something like A Female Investment Banker, What's Your Superpower? I love that as an idea, which is, as a woman in banking, it is tough because you typically are in the minority and you have a lot of different demands. So I think as an associate analyst, the industry is much friendlier and better and aware of what people need. I think it's still quite hard to have a family and be in banking, and I think there's a long way to go there. So figure out what you're good at and don't be scared to show that. And women, first of all, women are better at some things than men. We're better at multitasking. We show empathy more, not always as generalizations. We're better at empathy. We pick up on emotional EQ signals easily. There's a lot of things that you will have to your benefit, and figure out what those are and lean into them. Don't be scared to step up. Don't be scared to lean in, and then ask for the recognition when you do a good job. Across the board, women typically shy away from that. I think beyond that, as you get to those senior levels, what's been super helpful for me, and it comes a little back to, we talked about earlier, the exponent and the networking, is find your kind of people, find the people that are going to help you. And for me, that's been, I have a very strong network of women in law and private equity and banking who are supportive of me, but more than that, we're supportive of each other. And don't be scared to lean into that, because that is a difference. I don't play golf, for example. And so I can't go to all the golf days and hang out on the golf course, but I'll go to the event, connect with people before and after. So it means that I have to find a different way to market. I have to find a different way to build my business. And part of that has been networking. Part of it has been leaning into some of these groups of women, which the guys don't have access to. So finding what it is that you helps you to build your career is important. And then don't be scared to lean into it. We're good at some things. My golf game isn't very good. So,
Mine neither.
that's okay. Yeah.
So if I understand it,
Yeah.
it's really reflecting on what the
Yeah.
strengths are and what you can bring to the situation and leaning
Yeah.
into them, which I guess is
Yeah.
equal for everybody, and finding the right place to network, the right place to connect that suits you and making sure you maximize that. So some great
Yeah.
advice
That's a
there.
great one.
And I'll grab the book title off you. We'll pop it in the show notes as well
We'll figure
so
it
that you
out.
can
Yeah.
grab. You touched on family.
Yeah.
Anything you feel is to note there? What could be done better,
Yeah.
do you think? Because I'm guessing, and you
Yeah.
tell me if I'm wrong, that this is one of the things that affects
Yeah.
the number of women in leadership positions. So
Yeah.
what can be done to increase the number of women in
Yeah.
leadership positions, in your opinion?
So I'm a big believer in having a family and being able to have a family feeling good about it. I don't think, and by the way, there's never a good time to start having a family if you're an investment banker. Whether I had my kids young, other people have their kids older, it's always going to be difficult. But I think you have to be, hopefully you're at a bank which is supportive, and I think it's changed a lot. I think people are supportive. I think people are understanding. But I think really importantly, ask for what you need. A lot of people kind of suffer and they're struggling and they're drowning because they have 3 kids under the age of 5, and they're being asked to work till 2 o'clock in the morning and be in the office or travel, whatever it is. I think generally speaking, people are human. They get it. They have families. They understand. And I do find that people are very hesitant to ask for what they need. So if you need to work at home for a week because your kid is sick and your nanny's on vacation, or you need to take a day off for some reason, your parents are not well, whatever it is, don't be scared to ask. And hopefully you'll find yourself in an environment where that is going to be supportive. And I think increasingly where banks are recognizing the need to be supportive and see people as human and help them out. Because honestly, like getting people through some of those events really builds loyalty. I'm eternally thankful for the support I got when I had young kids. And I certainly couldn't have done it without the banks I was at and my family. So again, I think, yes, we're always going to lose people. And I would never, I think it's a very fair choice to stop working when you have kids. I think for some people that's really important. And they should absolutely have that choice with no judgment. But for those who do want to keep working or who want to take some time off and then come back, making that accessible and available and a conversation is really important.
Thanks for that. And I think that's great advice. And I think you're right, it has changed. There's more, I'm sure, to be done. And I think speaking up seems to be a theme that I'm picking up through today's episode. I think that's important. What's your take? There's a lot of talent could come back into the bank after having families or after taking time off. Do you think there's a way that can be captured better by leading banks?
100%. And if you figure it out, let me know.
That's it.
I'm at that stage where I have a lot of friends whose kids are middle school or high school, would love to come back and do something, but they feel that they really don't know where to start. And certainly some of the bigger banks have done a good job of trying to reach out to those women or creating programs where you can come back in, whether it's a few part-time, remote, get up to speed. I think that's a huge opportunity for professional women who chose to step away and now have time and talent that could certainly step back in. Yeah, Let me know when you figure it out.
Definitely, put our heads
it's
on
really
it.
hard to in an ecosystem like this, which is just very structured, to bring people back. And I think there's a huge opportunity to do that.
I agree. It's definitely something that could be done there. So we'll keep giving it the thought, and I'll ask as many leaders as possible. So we're leading nicely into culture, essentially here, with diversity in our culture. So Outram, we're a recognition company. So keen to know a bit about you. Investment banking doesn't always have the best reputation for employee recognition. Talk to me a bit about how you deal with it within your teams.
Yeah, and I wish I was perfect at this, but what we try to do is we try to celebrate wins as often as we can. And for that's little wins and big wins. So big wins, closing a deal, winning a big pitch. We try to make sure that if we win a pitch, we take the team out, or even if people just do a great job, go out for a dinner or drinks or whatever it is that suits the team. And then obviously at the end of a deal, really looking to recognize that people have won it. But I think more than that, it's really important to recognize what people do on a daily, day-to-day basis. So just saying thank you, pointing it out to other people that someone did a really good job, sending an email to somebody more senior or to the team, it is just super important, because this isn't easy. and there's a lot of pressure. And when you're up in the middle of the night and someone is under pressure and maybe said something they didn't mean to, knowing that they think you did a good job when you did one is just super important. So yeah, recognizing little and big wins is key to kind of keeping people on board, and everyone can do their part, right? Everyone can say thank you, everyone can say great job when they see it.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. It's definitely a team sport. I think
Yeah,
there's peer to peer,
definitely.
which is just as important as
Yeah,
a leadership to peer.
100%.
And when it gets left to one person or the senior,
Yeah,
it doesn't really work. It seems to me you've got a good practicing process, especially with the small wins and in the moment. I think that's one of the key
yeah.
things, calling it out in the moment and them understanding what they've done
Right.
well. Do you use any tools, or is it really just, as you say, trying to keep on top of it, emails, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's really tools. Again, I find it a bit more organic, but I try to just look back and figure out like who did something great, who needs a little bit of help, and it's not maybe criticism, but constructive feedback. Just get figuring that out is really important.
Excellent.
We
Yeah,
I
no, I
wish
agree
we
with
had
you.
more tools, honestly, but it's, at this point, you talk about recognition. It is making sure you say good job. We don't really do awards or anything like that. We do try to figure out a way to make people feel like they've done a great job. And of course, you guys are great partners at the end of a deal to help people remember what they did well.
We Thank
Yeah.
you. We do our best. We do our best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hours has come up quite a bit. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's a demanding environment, investment banking, and I don't think that's going to change. That's the
No,
nature of the work.
no,
So,
no.
as a leader, how do you manage culture effectively whilst considering the demands of the client and the demands of the business? I think
Yeah.
that's a really interesting topic
Yeah.
for most of our listeners.
Yeah. And the thing to always keep in the back of your mind with this job is, yes, this is a job for us. And yes, we do 5, 10 deals a year, and you're constantly working on that. But every deal you're doing for that client or that person, particularly in the middle market, maybe a little less so when you get to the large companies, is that they're probably going to do one in their lifetime. They might do two. And it's life-changing event for them and incredibly important. And if you can just keep that in the back of your mind as to this is why people are asking for this and this is why people want so much, I think that's helpful. And so I always think this is a very rewarding career if you recognize why you're doing what you're doing and you try and learn from everything you do. So at the time when I was working, I used to work late at night and come in late. We used to have to come in 6 days a week because we didn't have all the remote access. But when you're doing it in the lunch, try and remember why you're doing it and what you're doing it for. And then I do honestly think that if you have a great team, it makes it much easier. If you're there at late at night and the people around you and you're connected with them and you're in it together and you're working together, that makes it a lot easier as well. I think it has got better with remote working, and we try to be sensible. We don't need people to be in here at 10 o'clock at night if they can do their work at home. We just need the work done. And so I think that's made it a little bit easier. But you've just got to remember that everybody wants everything yesterday and everybody wants everything perfect. And part of it is it's just, it's such a big event for our clients that it's just important, and that's what they demand, and that's what the career is.
I love that. I've
Yeah.
spoken to a lot of leaders, and no
Yeah.
one's put it quite like that about the empathy and putting yourself in the client's shoes. We hear a lot about
Yeah.
it being a people business, investment
Yeah.
banking, and you've echoed that a lot today as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a life changing moment for them. So, of course, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Talked about remote work, talked about in the office. We know investment banking's apprenticeship. So,
Yeah.
post
Yeah.
culturally, what's happening now around that work from home piece and the team being
Yeah.
together?
Yeah, it's been a tough transition. I think part in and out. We've had to kind of find ways to get people to come together again. And I think being back in the office is helpful to build relationships. I actually am a believer that you can build relationships spending some of your time at home and some of your time in the office. When you're first starting in your career, so much of what you learn is just by hearing how people talk. It's about listening to people's phone conversations, being around, being able to ask for help when you need it, all of that kind of thing, getting to know your team. And again, it comes back to this: how do you get ahead? How do you learn? What are the skills? It's all about getting to know the people. And so I think being in the office is really important, especially at sort of an analyst, associate, VP level. And so coming back, we did the 2 days and then 3 days, and I think now we're basically back in 5 days. And I think it has helped for people to reconnect and just build their team culture and loyalty, and people feeling like they have each other's backs and they have support. I think it's harder to create if you're fully remote, but at the same time, it provides some flexibility. So if you have something going on at home, you can still get your work done. If you need to be there for your kids, you can still get your work done. And over the holidays, people can be more flexible. So I think it's kind of back into some kind of normal routine. It's been a nice way for people. People have reconnected. we're kind of back on track with how do we teach people on the job? How do we make sure they're succeeding? How do we make sure they're getting ahead? But at the same time, some flexibility, which is great. It's good to be able to feel like you have that if you need it.
Yeah, I think definitely that the flexibility helps, and we see it ever going back. That's how it was. Probably not, but at the same time, I agree with you completely that the more you're together, the more you're in it and experiencing those moments together, the easier it is to build that team dynamic that you've mentioned so important. I want to move a little bit. Sorry, you had something else?
No, it's just the only other thing I would say is the only thing that we still need to figure out is being connected all the time. So we do say to people, it's important to be connected, it's important to be in the office, it's important to learn on the job. It's also important to take some time out. And so that is the other thing that we figured during COVID, where people were just working all the time because there was nowhere to go. It was like, take that day, go to the gym, whatever it is you need to do. That is the only, that's the piece that I think people are working on across the industry, and people need to, will find that balance. But you do need to find a balance if you're going to be in this career a long time.
Yeah, definitely. And do you have advice in that regard then about how to switch off? Do you do types of things you can share that would help the audience? What's your take on that?
I wish I could say switch off. I'm not sure it's switch off. I think it's plan. I work out in the mornings, which is easy because it's quiet and it's not a big decision. But if I'm at home, I have dinner with my family and my kids, and I don't look at my phone when I'm at the dinner table. You've got an hour and you can work again later. If I'm on vacation, I schedule work time. So I tell everybody I'm available from 8 to 10 and 4 to 6, whatever it is, so that I can still get work done, but I don't constantly feel the need to be connected to everyone.
Nice. I'm a big fan of habit and the morning workout as well. And I think I've tried to put my phone away for a period in the evening. I've got two young boys, as you know, so otherwise it's so difficult to have that time. I want to talk a bit about networking. We kind of touched on it, putting yourself out there, going to the events, but as the founding member of Exponent, and that's really about bringing women together. Talk to me a bit about that. How do you network successfully, and what are the big challenges you think holding investment bankers back in this area? I think those two areas would be good to get some feedback on.
Yeah, networking is a big part of our job today. It's how you meet people, it's how you get to know about sectors, and how you get to meet your clients, how you get to meet your counterparties. It's not easy for everyone. I didn't find it easy to start. It certainly wasn't in my background. I don't remember ever going to a networking event in London or South Africa, and there's a lot of it here, right? So you have to find the kind of networking events that are comfortable for you, and then find a way to interact in those. And you don't have to go to all of them. Some people are better at smaller events, some people are great in those big events, some people can do it all. And then work out while you're there. So again, it's back to who's there, who do you want to meet? You're not just going to hang out. I mean, you can, but if you're actually going to network and you're working, you figure out why you're there, and then just remember that everybody else is there for a reason too. So people will often say, I don't want to speak to somebody I don't know. It's like, people went there to speak to people they don't know, and not everybody's going to be friendly, but if you can learn a few tricks around smiling, connecting with people, making some small talk conversation, easiest way to do it is to ask them about themselves and let them talk about themselves. People always respond to that. Figure out a way to do that, and it does make it more successful. I will say what we've tried to do with Exponent is kind of take it a step. For 7 or 8 years ago, I'd made this kind of pretty tight group of friends through various networking organizations, and there just wasn't a lot of opportunity at the time solely for women to get to know each other. So there are a lot of golf days, shooting days, driving days. It tends to be a bit more focused on the guys interacting and networking, and we just didn't really have a forum for that in New York. And there were forums for it, but they weren't particularly curated. And so what we wanted to create was the ability for mid-level and senior level women to come together, make connections with people who are in a similar level and similar role as them, and then really help them to get to know each other, but with the intention of starting to work together. And so if I need a lawyer, I can recommend the last 2 lawyers from my last 2 deals, and one of the women that I know really well from Exponent, and I know that she's good at what she's doing, and that can help her in her career as well. So it's really finding a way to make those connections in a more curated way, which has been super helpful because that was the networking that we needed for our career and to get ourselves ahead. And so by helping ourselves in our careers and helping other people in their careers, it's just a way to make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's a great idea. And it's like what you said about creating areas and opportunities to connect if you're not into golf or one of those types of events. Well, we'll make sure we include a link in the show notes again for that. And for those interested, it's a great network, so you should check it out for sure. Okay, well, I want to try and get you to reflect a little bit back now. So let's go back to your first day in investment banking back at DC.
Yeah.
knowing what you know now, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
Maybe not my first day because I was absolutely terrified and I was just relieved.
First week.
Just relieved
First
that I
week.
could figure it out. I think there's two pieces. I think number one, back yourself. You're there for a reason. Nobody gets into investment banking unless they're very accomplished, and you have the right to be there. Don't be scared to back yourself. Have that confidence. And then I think just absorb and learn as much as you can. And I did that part. I really did pay attention. I got to know people. I just learned as much as I could from everyone around me because there's so much to learn and there's so many directions. You don't have to stay in banking forever. There's so many opportunities, places you can go. And there's very few careers in this industry or world where you get the access to the level of kind of intelligence and smart people that are typically in a bank, but more important, and senior management at companies. Like, who at 22 is talking to the CEO of multi-million-dollar companies in any other organization? So you have that access. And if you can marry the two of really backing that you have the ability to be there and the confidence to step up, ask questions, get involved, with just soaking up and learning as much as you can, it's going to be beneficial to you whatever you do. Whether you stay in banking, whether you go into private equity, you start your own business, you can't lose. You just can't lose. You can only benefit from that if you really take what it offers you.
Yeah, that's really impactful. And I hear the sponge comes up a lot from leaders and just really take it all in. And like you said, there's not many roles that give you that level of exposure, so you've got to make the most of it.
Yeah.
And as a VP, going back to your first few weeks as a VP, advice there's a lot of advice for juniors in the industry, but not quite as much for VPs. And they're close to the MD role. So anything you can share that will really help our VP listeners to step up to that MD?
It's funny, when I made VP, one of the VPs that just made director gave me a bit of advice. He was like, your roles change. Your role is not to do the deal. Your role now is to be the managing director before you become it, right? So your role is to run the deal, get everything done, figure it out. The American expression is, you've got to quarterback this deal. You've got to take the time to think about what comes next. You've been doing it as an associate. You've been doing it as an analyst. You can do this, but your role is not just to wake up and get it done. Is to figure out what needs to happen next week and the week after that and the week after that, because that begins to show the directors and the managing directors and your client that you're more strategic. You're thinking ahead. So what needs to happen now to make that happen then, to make that happen? And that really helps you to step up as a director or a managing director, because now you're developing all those skills that you need to make the deal work. And then you can start focusing on your soft skills, your selling skills, whatever that is. But that really, it was just so helpful for me when instead of just thinking about, okay, I need to write a book and then I need to do a management presentation, it was, I'm going to write this book, but while I'm writing this book, what do I need to think about for next week? What is the resource I need? Can we start planning? Who should we be calling? Where's the buyers list? Making sure that you take as much off your managing director's plate as you can, and just stepping up is the easiest way to get recognized as a VP.
Excellent. So having that foresight to see what's coming next, take the pressure off the MD and build those skills. Play the role above, which we also hear quite often, right?
If you want to step in, you got to play it. That's the easiest way to do it.
Excellent. So I can't believe it. We've already been on the episode nearly an hour, so I'm going to move to wrap. I know you're busy. You've got a lot on your plate as well, of course. So a couple of final questions from me. In terms of resources, any resources that you really recommend that have had an impact on your growth, be it podcasts, books, materials, anything you can share that's good for the listeners today?
It's funny, I read everything, and I wish I could say it was one or the other. Depends on what week you catch me in. I mean, I'm happy to share some of the books I've read. Probably one that's been most impactful was actually a book that a business coach recommended for me around confidence and what does confidence mean for you. And actually, it was a nice way of characterizing it, which confidence doesn't mean you feel any differently about yourself. Confidence is having the strength to act. So what's the difference between somebody who comes across confident and unconfident? It's somebody who makes a decision and moves forward with it. And that was life-changing for me. I continue to read a lot of business books, both business as well as the psychology of business. And I think that's helpful. And just they morph. When you think about what you read 10 years ago as to what you read now, it's a fairly different approach to things. But staying on top of that. So if you can read one or two books, I read one or two fiction books a month, which we won't be talking about because they're like romances or whatever, but historical, whatever it is, the fiction of the week, and two business books a month. And I think that that's a great way to just stay on top of things and keep rethinking what you do with your career.
I think there's a few key points there. The evolution, obviously, and the more you read, the more you pick it up. And every successful leader I speak to has that in their makeup, in their locker. They're reading and they're trying to take on new.
Yeah.
And again, confidence. I'll definitely grab some titles off you and put them into the show notes. You mentioned confidence, the willingness to speak up and have confidence in what you say. That would be really interesting for the audience too. And one final question before we wrap. Anything you haven't covered today that you feel the listeners should know?
No, because I'm South African. But I mean, I think the thing to always remember, if you're just starting in banking, if you're in the middle stages of your career, is this is a really fun and exciting career if you let it be. Take the good part for what it is. You get to work with incredible founders, with incredible management teams, with smart people. No day is ever the same. No deal is ever the same. I mean, it's such a fun job if you can keep that in perspective. There's a lot of pressure around it, and things go wrong, and people can be difficult, but there's so many good parts. And I've always said, if I don't learn something new every day, I shouldn't be doing this anymore. There's not many careers that you can say that. So take it for what it is, but also know that this doesn't have to be forever. I love banking. I thought I was going to be in banking for 2 years. 20 years later, I'm still doing it and I still love it. But lots of people use it as a stepping stone to do other things, and it's a fantastic grounding. And the way that maybe accounting was for me in banking and accounting are fantastic grounding in just about anything you want to do beyond this. So take it for what that is and try and enjoy it. I see people, I always want to remind people that honestly, you are lucky to be here. And I try to remind myself of that every day and take as much good of it out of it as you can.
Well, what a great way to end. The passion definitely came through, and I think it's great advice, right? It's easy to get caught up in the challenges and the things that aren't going so well rather than remembering how good it can be and how good it is. So what a great way to end the episode. So Justine, thanks so much. Thanks for taking some time out to share your wisdom with the audience. I'm sure they're going to take a lot away. I know I certainly have, and certainly best of luck for the deals for the rest of this year.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. It was a fun hour.
My pleasure. This episode was brought to you by Outram, the global leaders in the financial deal gift, awards and recognition space. So if you need any assistance in these areas, don't be afraid to hit me or the team up. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, best of luck on your growth journey.